The sky was green and boiling when the crimson arrow fell. Mason Blake held onto the side rail as the ship tumbled, metal groaning like a wounded beast. Lights flickered, sparks erupted from the panels, and the floor tilted beneath his boots. The jungle planet came into view just seconds before impact-thick canopies, clouds of steam, jagged cliffs rising from alien soil. And then the ground slammed up to meet them. When he came to, smoke was filling the corridor. The emergency lights blinked red in the haze. Bodies lay still around him, but groans and coughing told him some had survived. The ship was broken, split open along one side like a crushed tin can. Mason's head throbbed as he pulled himself upright, oxygen holding at 42%. Someone shouted from the medbay. "But we've got maybe 72 hours unless we get the core back online." Mason rubbed his neck. The main reactor had taken a hit. He could feel the damage in the floor vibrations. Power flickered weakly in pulses like a dying heartbeat. And without that core, they were going to suffocate, one slow breath at a time. A voice called out to him through the smoke. "Blake, you're on power systems. They want you in the engine room now." He didn't hesitate. His boots crunched over shattered panels as he made his way down the corridor. When he pushed open the engine bay doors, the heat hit him like a wave. Even damaged, the Crimson Arrow's core still gave off a low, menacing hum. Steam hissed from broken valves, and the air smelled like copper and scorched plastic. She was already there tall, silver-skinned, standing perfectly still with her back. To him, say, R.A. of the velari, she was alien in every sense of the word. Her limbs moved like liquid steel, smooth and quiet. Her eyes were golden and unblinking. She didn't sweat. She didn't shift her weight or show emotion. She simply studied the exposed core housing with cold precision. Mason cleared his throat. "You're my partner on this?" "Yes," she said. Her voice was soft but perfectly clear, like a tone struck on glass. "I have mapped the damage. Core systems are unstable. Heat output rising. Coolant feed is compromised." He nodded. "Life support's already fading. We need the backup flow restored or we're dead in 3 days." Sira didn't react. She just turned to a set of controls and began working, her fingers moving quickly over the broken interfaces. Mason watched her for a moment. She never asked for help. She never looked frustrated. It unnerved him. They worked for hours, barely speaking. Only technical phrases passed between them. "Hand me the micro-welder. That circuit is fused. Apply pressure to stabilize the capacitor." It was like fixing a dying animal without knowing its language. After the repairs paused for the day, Mason leaned back, wiping sweat from his face. His arms ached. He glanced over and found Sira watching him. "Tomorrow's repair segment," she said calmly, "will require full vent access near the reactor core. High heat protocols apply." "Yeah," he said, breathing heavily. "I figured." "Do." "To thermal buildup, I will remove all clothing." He blinked. "What?" "Clothing restricts coolant evaporation," she explained. "My skin must remain exposed to dissipate heat. It is a standard velari procedure during extreme repair tasks." Mason stared at her. His brain scrambled for a response, but nothing formed. "You single quotes going to be naked?" "That is an inefficient word," she said simply. "I will be optimized." He ran a hand through his hair. "Humans usually have modesty, privacy, that kind of thing. I do not require privacy." "To perform repairs," she said. "Do you?" He looked away. "I just wasn't expecting that, is all." She turned back to her tools without another word. Mason stood in silence for a while, then slowly walked out of the engine room, unsure whether tomorrow was going to be more dangerous for the ship or for his sense of sanity. He was still thinking. About her eyes, calm and unreadable as he collapsed onto his bunk and stared at the cracked ceiling of the Crimson Arrow. The morning light seeped in through a crack in the outer hull, casting sharp shadows across the corridor. Crimson Arrow groaned again, her wounded frame straining against the rising heat. Outside, thick vines and bright red leaves pressed against. The viewports, like the jungle itself, was trying to reclaim the ship. Mason Blake stood in front of the engine room hatch, holding a jar of thermal gel in one hand and dread in the other. He hadn't slept much. Not because of the temperature or the faulty circulation system, but because of the image, stuck in his head. Sira. Calm, precise, totally unfazed. She had told him flatly that she'd be discarding her uniform for today's high-heat work. Not as a statement, not for attention, just for efficiency. He tried not to overthink it. Tried and failed. When the hatch slid open, heat poured over him like a wave. He stepped in, sweat already forming under his collar. The engine room glowed with orange and red hues from the flickering reactor core. The humming had grown louder overnight, deep and uneven. Unstable. And there she was. Ira stood at the upper platform, her back turned, already working. Her body shimmered in the heat. Silver scales ran along her spine, pulsing faintly with internal energy. No armor, no fabric, just her tall, sleek form glinting like a living machine. It wasn't seductive. It wasn't even strange. It was otherworldly, purposeful. Mason tried not to look directly. "Morning," he said, voice cracking a little. She didn't turn. "You are late." Thermal gel took a while to find. "Apply it quickly. The chamber temperature is already rising past human tolerance." He rubbed the cool blue substance across his forearms, neck, and temples. It helped, but the air was still suffocating. Sweat dripped into his eyes as he climbed to the upper platform. "Status?" he asked. "Coolant bypasses failed," Sira said. "I am rerouting pressure through auxiliary ducts. You will adjust the intake valves manually when I give the signal." "Got it." They worked in sync, despite the unspoken tension between them. Mason followed her lead, moving between panels, adjusting flow regulators, sealing minor breaches with a quick weld. The room vibrated with pressure. Sparks flared now and then from overcharged conduits. The danger was real, but something else kept his pulse racing. At one point, as he crouched near the central hub, he glanced up and saw her watching him. Not just with observation, not just analysis. There was curiosity in her eyes, something unreadable. Something not entirely velari. "You are not focused," she said. "I am," he replied quickly. "Your heart rate is elevated. Your respiration is uneven. It's 100 degrees in here, and I'm working next to a glowing alien in a metal sauna," he muttered. "What do you expect?" She tilted her head. "I expect function, nothing more." A small alarm began to ring a low, pulsing chime. Sira turned instantly. "Pressure is rising too fast. The lower exhaust port must be realigned." Mason blinked. "That's in the crawl space. You are too large," she said. "Thanks. I will go." She moved swiftly to the shaft-long limbs folding with unnatural grace and slipped inside. Her voice crackled through the coms a moment later. "I see the misaligned joint. I will attempt manual adjustment." "Venting heat now," Mason said, fingers flying across the console. "Just hurry. Readings are spiking." Then dash banged out. A pipe near the crawl space ruptured, shooting steam across the room. Mason flinched, coughing. "Sira, report. I am not injured. Continuing repair." He rushed to divert pressure again, typing commands, watching her life signs on the monitor. Her pulse was steady. Her oxygen levels normal. She was calm even now. Within minutes, the temperature dropped slightly. The core's pulse steadied. Then came her voice, soft but triumphant. Repair complete. Sira crawled out slowly, covered in a sheen of steam and light. Her body glowed with reactor light, but her face was unreadable. She stood in front of Mason and said simply, "Efficiency has been restored." He exhaled hard and dropped to the floor. "You're unbelievable." "I am logical," she said. They sat there for a moment, surrounded by humming metal and warm silence. Then she asked something unexpected. "Did my lack of covering hinder your ability to perform?" He looked up, blinking. "What?" "Your performance metrics were erratic for the first 43 minutes. Did my form distract you?" He rubbed his face. "Yes. No. I mean, it was just unexpected. Your species links nudity to emotional states. Velari do not. It is a design flaw in your cognitive system." Mason chuckled despite himself. "Thanks. Do you consider it offensive?" "No," he said honestly. "Just different. We're wired to make emotional connections, even when we try not to." She was quiet, studying him. Then she said, "Curious. Emotion is inefficient. Yet, it seems to create resilience." "Yeah," Mason said. "That's the funny part. Feelings slow us down, but they also keep us going." She didn't respond, but her eyes stayed on him a little longer than usual. Later that day, the captain called all remaining crew to the central bay. Reports had come in. A signal, faint but real, was detected from a nearby orbit. It wasn't a rescue ship. It was an Alliance vessel, and it wasn't the only signal detected. "We've got another inbound," the captain said, voice tight. "Unknown signature. Could be human. Could be hostile. We don't know yet." Mason glanced at Sira. Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. More alert, more guarded. "Stay ready," the captain warned. "If they're coming for us, we need this ship functional. And we need eyes wide open." Mason's hand brushed against his tool belt, but his thoughts were on Sira, on the strange tension between logic and feeling. Heat and trust. Tomorrow might bring rescue. Or war. The jungle was louder at night. Mason couldn't sleep. Not with the noise of unfamiliar creatures echoing through the torn walls of the Crimson Arrow. Not with the heat that clung to everything, thick and suffocating. And not with the memory of Sira, gliding through the reactor crawl space like she wasn't risking her life to keep them all breathing. She didn't flinch, didn't pause, didn't ask for help. She was different. No alien, truly. And yet something about her presence was starting to settle inside him like an itch he couldn't scratch. He sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor, then finally stood and pulled on his boots. His thoughts weren't going away. Maybe a walk would help. The corridor lights were dim, flickering. Parts of the ship still ran on backup circuits. Shadows moved with every flicker. The silence inside was worse than the jungle outside. As he turned the corner near the mess hall, he heard voices, low, tense. "I'm just saying," someone whispered, "she shouldn't be here. We're fixing a human ship, not babysitting a skinless lizard." Mason froze. "You saw her today," another voice said. "She doesn't even flinch, crawling through vents naked like it's nothing." "I don't trust it. She's not like us. She's not even trying to be." Mason stepped into the hallway. "Maybe she doesn't have to try," he said flatly. The two crewmen, Weber and Grand, jerked their heads toward him. Weber snorted. "Blake, didn't know you were listening. Maybe next time keep your bigotry at whisper level." Mason replied, jaw clenched. Grand raised his hands. "We're just saying, man. She's not part of our team." "She's the reason we're not suffocating right now," Mason snapped. "She's done more than either of you." They glared, but neither spoke. After a beat, they walked away. Mason exhaled and leaned against the wall. His blood was hot, and not from the temperature. Behind him, a soft voice spoke. "You defended me." He turned fast. Sira stood there in the shadows, her silver skin catching the faint light. She wore a simple utility robe this time, tied loosely around her frame. "How long were you listening?" he asked. "Long enough," he sighed. "Sorry, they were out of line." "They are afraid," she said calmly. "That doesn't make it okay." She tilted her head. "You risked social standing." "To protect me." "Why?" He looked at her for a moment. "Because I've lost people before. And you're not just some stranger. You've kept us alive. You've kept me alive." Her golden eyes watched him, no emotion. "Just understanding. In Velari culture," she said, "defense of another without bond is rare. It indicates a high degree of emotional deviation." Mason smiled faintly. "Welcome to the human condition." They stood in silence until Sira said, "I have a request." "Yeah? Teach me." "Teach you what?" "Your emotional deviations," he blinked. "You want me to teach you how to feel." She didn't blink. "To understand, not feel. Understanding creates trust. Trust builds alliances." Mason chuckled. "You're a strange one, Sira." "I have been told," she said. The next morning, a sharp alarm pierced the ship. Mason and Sira rushed to the com deck. Captain Vera stood at the console, her face pale. "We've picked up a second signal. Not Alliance? Pirates?" Mason asked. "Worse," she said grimly. "We cross-referenced the ID trace. It's a human ship, old signature, registered to a group flagged for anti-Alliance extremism." "They're following the Velari," Sira said instantly. The captain nodded. "Or the tech we've got on board. Either way, they're coming." "When?" Mason asked. "They'll be within atmosphere in 12 hours. Mason turned to Sira. "We're not ready." "Then we must accelerate repairs," she said. They split up. Sira went to stabilize the shield generators. Mason took two others to reinforce the outer hull. The jungle heat was rising fast. Sweat poured from their faces as they welded support. Struts and patched weak spots with scrap. Mason kept glancing at the sky. Hours passed. The red clouds thickened. Then came the sound, deep and unnatural, a sonic pulse that vibrated through bone. They all turned toward the sky as a dark shape broke through the clouds. It wasn't sleek like the Alliance ships. It was jagged, armored, ugly. "They're here," one of the engineers whispered. The rogue vessel landed hard near the outer ridge, sending shockwaves through the soil. Trees shattered. Dust choked the air. From a distance, figures emerged. 6 of them, human, armed, moving with purpose. The captain ordered all non-essential crew to retreat into the safe zone. Mason grabbed his toolkit and headed straight for the central hallway. Sira was already there, crouched behind a console, assembling something. "What is that?" he asked. "A compression cutter," she said. "Repurposed into a directed pulse weapon. Non-lethal, but strong enough to disable." He blinked. "You built a weapon out of a pipe cutter?" "Yes." "Remind me never to get on your bad side." "Ah." Warning sirens shrieked through the ship. They were coming. Mason glanced at her, jaw tight. "We're gonna hold them off." Sira met his gaze. Together. The first shot rang out, slamming into the side of the ship. They both ducked. Mason's hand shook as he reached for his wrench, not just from fear, but from something more dangerous. He wasn't afraid to fight for his ship anymore. He was afraid of what he'd lose if Sira didn't make it out. Night had teeth on this planet. Black skies stretched endlessly overhead, and the air outside the Crimson Arrow buzzed with a wrong kind of silence, the kind that warned you something terrible was approaching. The rogue ship had landed an hour ago. Its hull was blackened and crude, patched together with welded scars and stolen tech. It didn't glow like Alliance vessels or hum with purpose like Velari crafts. It snarled. And it waited. Inside the Crimson Arrow, every corridor flickered. with red emergency lights. The crew had sealed off unnecessary sections to concentrate power. Those who could still fight were arming themselves with makeshift gear shock rods, arc blades, even kitchen knives wrapped in plasma wire. Mason Blake stood in the comms bay, sweat glistening on his neck, adjusting the final override locks on the interior hatch system. The ship wasn't ready for war. It wasn't even ready for a proper defense. But they had no choice. Captain Vera's voice came through the internal comm. Hostiles confirmed. 6 humans, armed, likely anti-alliance radicals, targeting Velari tech or Velari blood. Hold positions. Trust your team. Mason turned as footsteps approached. Sira entered, her movement fluid and precise as always. But something in her eyes had changed. They no longer scanned, calculated, or categorized. They focused. Locked onto his face like she was memorizing him. Defensive systems active. She said, "Are you armed?" Compression cutter, modified. Low energy, high output. Mason handed her a shock knife. Just in case. She took it carefully, holding it like it was heavier than it looked. "I do not wish to use this." "Then don't give them a reason." They moved together toward the port corridor, past sealed storage rooms and flickering wall lights. The crew was tense, quiet, listening. Sira stopped suddenly near a vent. 2 incoming. She whispered. They crouched low, backs against opposite walls. Mason clutched the shock knife, heart pounding. Footsteps echoed closer, heavy boots against scorched metal. The sound of a muttered curse. 2 voices, male. "They're hiding Velari gear in the engine core," one said. "Good," the other growled. "We strip it, destroy the rest, leave no trace." Mason nodded at Sira. In one silent motion, she stepped into the corridor. The moment they saw her, their weapons raised, but too late. Sira activated her cutter with a flash of light and a burst of compressed force. One man slammed into the wall. The other spun toward Mason, but he lunged, jamming the shock knife into the attacker's side. The surge dropped him instantly. They fell still. Mason stood, breathing hard. "You okay?" Sira checked the pulse of the man she stunned. "Alive." Stunned for approximately 7 minutes. "Then we move fast." They continued down the hall. Across the ship, more impacts shook the frame. The intruders were splitting up, trying to breach multiple sectors. Captain Vera's voice came through the static again. 1 hostile in medbay, 1 in nav, 1 unaccounted. Repeat. 1 is heading toward the engine core. Mason's blood ran cold. "The reactor," he said. "We must protect it." Sira replied. They ran. Every corridor flashed by like a blur, half-lit, damaged, creaking. When they reached the engine room, the door was open. That alone was wrong. Someone had forced it. They stepped inside, weapons ready. The hum of the core was louder now, unstable. The heat in the chamber was rising again. Steam hissed from pressure valves. On the far side of the reactor, a tall figure stood with a heavy charge pack slung across his back. Mason froze. "You?" Greer turned, a smile twitching on his face. "Figured you'd come, you and your pet alien." Mason stepped forward. "You sabotaged the beacon. You crashed us. Greer or shrugged. Had to wake people up. The Alliance is poisoning us. Letting them in, trusting them, it's suicide. You tried to kill us." "No," Greer said, tapping the side of the reactor. "But I'll finish the job if I have to." "You think this alliance is real? They'll gut us the first chance they get." Sira stepped forward. "This reactor supplies oxygen to all surviving crew. If you destabilize it, we all die. Better dead than subjugated." Mason stepped between them. "You're done, Greer. You're outnumbered. And you're out of time." Greer's eyes twitched. He reached for the detonator. Before he could press it, Sira moved swift, fluid, precise. In a single motion, she crossed the room, grabbed his wrist, twisted it with unnatural grace, and drove him into the wall. The detonator skidded across the floor. Or struggled, spitting, snarling. You don't get it. She's not one of us. Sira held him firm, eyes cold. I do not need to be one of you to protect you. Mason picked up the detonator and crushed it under his boot. Security arrived moments later, taking Greer away in restraints. He screamed the whole time about corruption, purity, betrayal. No one listened. Back in the engine room, the lights dimmed slightly as the power stabilized again. Sira leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. He would have destroyed everything. And you stopped him, Mason said. She looked at him. Did you believe I would? He nodded. Always. She studied his face for a long moment. Then she said, when you defended me in the hall, I understood it. Now. Understood what? Why you feel things. Why you fight for people. Even when logic says not to. Mason stepped closer. Welcome to humanity. Sira tilted her head. It is terrifying, he laughed softly. Yeah, it is. Later that night, after repairs were completed and Greer was locked away, the crew gathered in the central mess hall. Food rations were low, but spirits were high. Someone handed Sira a small tray with a protein bar and a packet of juice. She stared at it. Free meal, Mason explained. You earned it. This is reward? Welcome gift, he said. Or apology. Take your pick. She sat beside him quietly. After a moment, she said, Today, I felt something in my chest. When you stood between me and danger. Fear? He asked. No, she said. Something warm, unmeasured. Mason nodded. That's what we call trust. The jungle outside had gone quiet again, but the silence didn't bring peace. It pressed against the hull of the Crimson Arrow like a warning waiting to unfold. Inside the ship, tension lingered like smoke. Greer was locked away, restrained in a storage bay under guard, but his words echoed long after his capture. She's not one of us. She never will be. Mason Blake stared out the observation port just above the engine deck. The stars were back, no clouds, no lightning, just the still, silent cosmos. But he couldn't enjoy it. Not after what they'd almost lost. And not with what he was starting to feel. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Sira entered quietly. Dressed in a simple dark robe, her silver skin catching the dim light. You're awake, he said. I could not recharge. Mason smiled faintly. Join the club. She stepped beside him, gazing at the stars. He called me a machine in skin. Mason's fists clenched. Don't repeat anything that idiot said. I am not offended, she said calmly. I am ... reflective. He looked at her. You're not a machine. No, she said. But I was trained to be like one, efficient, logical, unshaken. He turned to face her fully. Well, you're not. You're more than that now. Because I defended the ship? No, he said. Because you chose to. Because you felt something. Because you are something. Her golden eyes flicked up to meet his, and for once, she didn't look away. I do not have the language for this, she said softly, but there is something new in my thoughts when I see you. It is not fear, not duty. Connection. Mason offered. Connection, she repeated. They stood in silence, closer than usual, the space between them humming with something unsaid. Then the alert buzzed again. Mason's heart dropped. Captain Vera's voice crackled over the com. Unknown ship detected. This time, not human. Repeat, not human. Incoming alliance signature, unregistered. Sira, report to command. Sira turned. That is not a scheduled vessel. Mason followed her down the corridor toward the bridge. The crew scrambled to their posts, eyes wide, hands shaking. The trauma of the last attack still burned fresh. The holographic screen displayed the approaching vessel, sleek, obsidian black with glowing teal wings. It didn't match any known Alliance ship. It was Thoraxi design. Sira's expression shifted subtly. Not fear, not surprise. Recognition. "You know that ship," Mason said. "I know its builder." The vessel hailed. The screen flickered, then displayed a tall Thoraxi commander with deep violet eyes and an ornate crest on his uniform. "Engineer Sira of Velari," he said. "You are summoned." "Summoned?" Captain Vera asked, her tone defensive. "By whose authority?" Sira asked, stepping forward, "By order of the Velari High Command. You are to return immediately for evaluation. The bond you have formed with this crew is ... under review." Mason's stomach turned. Sira was silent for a moment. Then she said, "This is not a request." "No," the commander confirmed. "It is not." The signal cut. Vera turned to Sira. "Do you have to go?" "Yes," she said quietly. "They will not ask twice." Mason stared at her. "But we just after everything. I know." He looked away, jaw tight. "You said you trusted me." "I do," she said. "Then why are you leaving?" "Because if I do not go, they will revoke the alliance," she said. "They will see my bond with you as corruption, not cooperation. They do not understand your kind yet." Mason's voice cracked. "And what about you? Do you understand us?" She stepped closer. "I am starting to." They stared at each other. Then she reached into her robe and pulled out a small crystal fragment, glowing faintly. She pressed it into his palm. "Memory." "Shard," she whispered. "It holds my logic sequences, my voice, my thoughts. Speak to it when I'm gone." "It will reply?" Mason couldn't find his voice. She leaned forward, gently pressing her forehead to his. "I will return if they allow me." He nodded, clutching the shard. "I'll wait, even if they don't." When Sira boarded the incoming ship, the crew stood silently by the airlock. No one saluted. No one moved. It wasn't military. It was something heavier. As the vessel disappeared into the sky, Mason stood alone in the corridor, his hand clenched around the memory shard. The next 3 days passed like winter. The ship was stable. Oxygen levels were normal. Repairs were nearly complete. But everything felt muted, colder. The crew talked less, laughed less. Even the jungle seemed less alive. Mason used the shard twice. The first time, Sira's voice responded immediately. "Hello, Mason. If you are holding this, then I am not beside you. That feels ... wrong." He nearly dropped it. The second time, her voice said, "You once said cooking brings comfort. You smiled when you boiled that terrible synthetic rice. I miss your smile." He stopped using the shard after that. It hurt too much. Then, on the 4th day, an alert blinked in the comms room. Incoming transmission. Velari diplomatic request, personal tag. Sira of Velari status, returning passenger. No restraint. No summons. Chosen. Mason stared at the message for a full minute. Then he ran. He reached the landing bay just as the new vessel descended. This one was different, smaller, brighter, lined with alliance markings. A symbol of peace. Not power. The doors opened slowly, steam hissing out, and there she was. Sira stood at the top of the ramp, dressed in a new dark robe with a silver trim. No weapons, no armor. Just clarity. Mason didn't wait. He sprinted toward her. She didn't blink, didn't move until he reached her. And then, finally, she stepped forward, placed a hand on his chest and said, "They did not understand, but I made them listen." His eyes burned. "You came back. I chose to." And behind them, the crew of the Crimson Arrow erupted into applause, but Mason didn't hear it. Not really. All he heard was her voice, and all he saw was her smile. The jungle storm came with no warning. One moment, the sky above the Crimson Arrow was clear, glowing with amber light filtered through dense red leaves. The next, black clouds rolled in like smoke, heavy with lightning and thick, corrosive rain. The storm didn't rumble, it roared. And beneath that roar was something else. A pulse. Not natural. Not weather. Something ancient. Mason Blake heard it first in the walls, like the ship was trying to speak. Deep inside the hull, something vibrated beyond the resonance of their systems. He turned to Sira, who stood beside him in the main deck, her silver eyes fixed on the static lace screen. "What the hell is that?" he asked. "Not thunder," she said. "Not from the storm." Before they could speak again, the power flickered. Alarms blared through the ship. Doors sealed. Emergency lights turned blue. Captain Vera's voice cut in through the intercom. "Everyone report. We've detected a pulse from beneath the planet's surface. Repeat, from beneath." Sira moved fast, her fingers dancing across the panel. The screen lit with seismic readings. Mason watched the waveform spike like a heartbeat. "It's not natural," she said. "This isn't just tectonic movement." "You mean it's artificial?" "Buried tech," she whispered. "Velari, but older. Very old." Outside, the storm intensified. Acidic rain hissed against the hull. The jungle began to fold under wind pressure. Trees collapsed like matchsticks. "Whatever we crashed into," Mason said slowly, "wasn't just dirt." The ship's AI kicked in, processing fragments of the seismic data. Buried directly beneath the Crimson Arrow was a subterranean vault massive, sealed in hexagonal layers of unknown alloys. It was awakening. And their reactor was acting like a key. "The repairs we made," Sira said. "The frequency shifts. They matched the activation patterns. We didn't fix a ship. We triggered a signal." "You're telling me we rebooted a goddamn alien lockbox?" Mason said, stepping back. Sira looked at him. "Yes." Captain Vera stormed into the room. "We've got 5 minutes before this." "Vault fully powers. I want options. Is it safe?" "Unknown," Sira replied. "But if it completes activation, we may lose core control. Or worse, it could pull us underground." "So we shut it down," Vera said. "We can't shut it down," Mason said. "It's already too integrated with the power grid. We kill the connection, we lose life support, oxygen, everything." The storm outside reached its peak. The ship shook under a thunderclap that sounded more like an explosion. Sira turned to Mason. "I will go below, into the conduit shaft." He stared at her. "What? No, not again. I understand velari tech. You do not." "It's not just velari tech. You said it's older. What if it's dangerous? What if it's not just a lock? What if it's a weapon?" She was already stepping toward the lift. "Then I must see it before it sees us." Mason moved fast, grabbing her arm. "You're not doing this alone again." "You can't follow me," she said. "The shaft is too narrow. The radiation level's too high." "Then take this." He pulled a small device from his belt, a personal signal booster. "I rigged it yesterday. Doubles come strength. If something happens, I'll hear it." She stared at the device, then took it gently. "You are changing." "You changed me first," he said. Her expression softened barely. "Then let's both survive the change." She vanished into the shaft minutes later, swallowed by steam and sparks. Mason returned to the command deck, eyes fixed on the life signs monitor. Her pulse held steady, slow, focused. Deep below, Sira crawled through ancient metal tunnels lined with symbols even she couldn't read. Glowing veins of energy pulsed beside her. The hum grew louder, higher pitched, like something recognizing her presence. Then the hum stopped. Mason froze as her life sign spiked. "Sira?" No answer. Sira, respond. His voice echoed into static. Then a deep sound shook the entire ship, a single, slow chime like a bell made of stone. The lights returned. The storm stopped. The ship stopped shaking. And on the monitor, her signal. Return. Mason exhaled so hard he nearly fell over. Mason, her voice crackled through. I'm standing in a chamber. It's not a vault. What is it? It's a message. From who? There was a pause. From Velari ancestors, thousands of years old. They left it hidden, waiting, not for us but for someone. Who trusts the other? Mason blinked. Someone who trusts? Someone like you and me. Then her voice faltered. I think it's a beacon, not to signal help, to signal unity. It's searching for more like us. More what? Bonded. Pairs, cross-species, collaborators. Mason felt his chest tighten. Why? Because they believed only those who combined reason and emotion could inherit what's buried here. The screen flickered again. A map appeared. Not of this planet, not even of this galaxy. A star chart. Mason stared. What the hell? Captain. Vera looked at it too. Those are all Alliance worlds. And then some. Sira's voice returned. They left instructions. Not weapons, not warnings. Invitations to those willing to evolve. The screen zoomed out. A trail blinked across. The galaxy, connecting dots. Connecting systems. Then a single word appeared in Velari glyphs, translated instantly by the AI. Begin. Sira returned to the surface 2 hours later. Her robe was scorched. Her eyes exhausted. But she held something in her hand, a circular device glowing faintly, marked with ancient symbols. She placed it on the table in front of the crew. They call it the Concordance, she said. The beginning of a new path. Mason met her gaze. What do we do with it? Vera asked. Sira looked at Mason before answering. We follow it. And for the first time in generations, humans and Velari prepared to leave not as strangers. On a broken ship, but as the first united pair in a galaxy waiting to be healed. The stars were no longer just light. They were directions. 3 weeks had passed since the activation of the Concordance. The jungle planet, once a hostile tomb of storms and silence, now stood still beneath the ship they'd nearly died repairing. The Crimson Arrow wasn't just flight-ready. Again, it was changed, repurposed. Integrated velari systems pulsed alongside human tech. Glowing conduits, new interfaces, hybridized memory cores. It was no longer one people ship. It belonged to both. Inside, the crew adjusted slowly. Some were still nervous, others curious. But none could deny what they had seen. The map, the message. The legacy buried under their feet, now awakened by the one thing the galaxy had tried for generations to deny. Trust between enemies. Mason Blake stood on the command deck, fingers tracing the edge of the Concordance disk. It hummed with quiet. Energy beneath his hand, warm like skin. Across from him stood Captain Vera, her arms folded. We're really doing this? She asked. If we don't, he said, someone else will. Someone who won't use it for peace. Vera didn't argue. She turned to the viewport. You really trust her? Mason didn't need to answer. Footsteps approached from behind, measured, even unmistakable. Sira stepped forward, dressed now. In a uniform she'd helped design herself, part Alliance black, part Velari silver. Between the two shades was a line of soft indigo, a color neither species used before. It was new. A symbol of what they were becoming. She held a data pad. First destination is a star system beyond Alliance borders. The map calls it Calith. The Concordance believes there may be more technology buried there. And people. Vera asked. Sira nodded. Perhaps. They launched at dawn. The new engines roared to life with a deeper hum. The stars warped and danced across the glass as the Crimson Arrow leapt into subspace. Silence filled the ship. Not fearful silence, but reverent. They were entering the unknown. Together. In the days that followed, Mason and Sira spent hours decoding what they could from the map. Each node revealed not just coordinates, but lessons, logs, stories. Messages from ancient Velari explorers who had once reached out to other species. And failed. They weren't rejected, Sira said one night, reviewing a transmission. They were feared. Every time they tried to unite, others ran. Or attacked. Mason leaned over the console. So they hid it all? Yes, she said. And waited for a time when someone would not run. He studied her face. And now? Now, she said softly, we are the message. On day 12 of the journey, the Concordance pulsed without warning. Red light. One single beacon point blinking rapidly. Emergency ping, Sira said. But not from Caliph. Mason leaned forward. So what is it? A distress call, she said, voice tightening. Another ship. Human. The screen expanded. The vessel was small, damaged, floating near a dead moon. They rerouted instantly. When they arrived, the ship's hull was barely holding together. Distress signals had been sent in every language, but the return message wasn't automated. It was a voice. Young. Panicked. This is Cadet Jonas Meyer of the New Hope. We were attacked. Unknown drones crew dead. Life support failing. Please? Someone respond. Mason didn't hesitate. We're here, Jonas. We're coming. The rescue was rough. Gravity was unstable near the moon's orbit, and the drones were still nearby. Sira took the lead, piloting a small shuttle through debris while Mason prepped the med chamber. They found Jonas unconscious in a corner of the broken ship, barely breathing. He was 16. They brought him aboard. 3 hours later, he opened. His eyes and stared at Sira. His body tensed. You're velari, he whispered, shrinking back. You're like the ones from the training vids, Mason stepped in. No, she's not. But she saved your life, Mason said gently. She flew through hell to reach you, and she doesn't want anything in return. Jonas didn't respond. He just stared. And then, finally, he asked, Why? Sira looked at him calmly. Because you called for help. And that was the beginning of something new. The Concordance recognized the moment. The device glowed again. Brighter than before, a new node lit up on the map. One they hadn't seen before. A message unfolded across the screen, translated into human text and velari glyphs. Where one chooses the other, we awaken. Mason stared at the words. It's alive, he whispered. This thing, it's not just a map. It's learning from us. Sira nodded. We are not the explorers. We are the test. The final coordinates shimmered into place. A single point far beyond any known sector. The last vault. The origin. A planet untouched by alliance, empire, or war. Marked only by a single glyph. Unity. The Crimson Arrow changed course. Weeks passed in transit. The crew slowly shifted. Walls once silent with tension now echoed with laughter. Sira ate meals with them now, even if she didn't need to. She sat in the mess, listened to jokes, and sometimes even smiled. Mason caught her doing it one evening, just a twitch of her mouth, soft and unsure. He didn't say anything. He just sat beside her, placed his hand on the table, palm up. She looked at it. Then placed hers over it. No words. They didn't need them. When they finally reached Unity. The planet was quiet, beautiful, oceans of gold, forests of violet. No storms, no conflict. Just a chamber in the mountains, perfectly preserved. Inside, they found a memory bank. Stories, artifacts, recordings of dozens of species, some extinct, some still waiting to be found. All left messages, not of war, but of waiting for the right. Ones for those who didn't just tolerate difference, but chose it. As the Crimson Arrow transmitted the data to both human and Velari command, Sira turned to Mason. "Do you understand now?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, this was never about technology." "No," he said. "It was about us." As they stood beneath the alien sky, light pouring through glass that had survived thousands of years, Mason reached for her hand again, and this time she met it halfway. The Crimson Arrow would go on to lead the new initiative, the Concordance Protocol, pairing cross-species crews to explore forgotten systems. Some called them heroes, others called them traitors, but to those who saw them walk side by side, there was no question. They weren't just fixing ships anymore, they were fixing the future.